Level 1. The Outcast Child. You're 12. You don't choose this. Nobody chooses this. Your father chose it, or rather, it was chosen for him, the way most things are chosen for men who have no power to refuse. A lord needed someone. Your father was available. That was enough. That was how it always worked. One man's availability becomes his son's inheritance, becomes his grandson's prison. You are 12 years old, and you already know what you are. The village knows before you do. Children learn it from their parents the way they learn everything that matters, not through explanation, but through behavior. The way a mother pulls her child's hand away when you reach toward them in the market. The way a shopkeeper's face changes when your father, the way the priest gives communion last, after everyone else, as though holiness might be contaminated by proximity to your family's work. Your father's name is Heinrich. He has been the executioner of this district for 23 years. He is not a cruel man. That is the thing nobody understands from the outside. They imagine a man who enjoys it, who was built for darkness, who chose violence the way other men choose carpentry or farming. Your father is quiet. He reads when he can find books. He keeps a garden behind the house that sits at the edge of town, not in the town, never in the town. Executioners don't live among the people they serve. He grows cabbages and turnips and once, unsuccessfully, roses. He doesn't talk about the work. You don't ask. One evening, you find him at the table after a long day. His hands are clean. He is always meticulous about his hands, but there is something in his face that wasn't there in the morning. A kind of flatness, like a room after the fire has gone out. You sit across from him. You eat your supper in silence. He looks at you once across the table. He says nothing, but in that look is everything he will never say out loud. The apology for what you were born into. The warning about what is coming. The thing he cannot change and cannot explain and cannot carry for you. You finish your supper. You clear the table. You go to bed. Tomorrow he will begin teaching you. Level 2. The Apprentice. You are 15. Your father's hands are steady. That is the first thing you learn. Not technique, not procedure. Steadiness, the ability to perform a precise physical action while a crowd of people watch you with a combination of hunger and revulsion that has no name in polite language, while the person in front of you makes sounds that human beings are not supposed to make, while your own body tells you to stop, to look away, to be anywhere else on earth. You learn to make your hands steady anyway. The first months are lesser work. Floggings, the pillory. The cutting of ears for petty theft, one ear for the first offense, both for the second, and you try not to think about what a man looks like with no ears trying to explain himself to anyone for the rest of his life. The branding iron, the stocks, the public humiliations that the law requires and the crowd enjoys, and you administer with the same careful professionalism your father has spent 23 years building. You learn the rope, how to measure it against a man's weight. Too short, and he suffers. Too long, and the head separates, and the crowd, which has come for spectacle, not horror, looks away disgusted. The calculation is precise. It is not cruel. It is the opposite of cruel. It is the application of knowledge, so that the thing ends as quickly as it can end. Your father watches your hands constantly. Not your face, not your eyes, your hands. He says one thing to you in the first year of apprenticeship, that he will never repeat, but that you will carry for the rest of your life. The work does not ask for your feelings. It asks for your precision. Your feelings are your own business. Keep them that way. You learn to keep them that way. A man is brought in for questioning. He is accused of stealing from the Lord's granary. There is no evidence. Evidence is not always the point. The point is confession. Your father explains the rack to you with the same tone a carpenter uses to explain a dovetail joint. The mechanism, the leverage, the degree of pressure required to produce speech without producing permanent damage, because a dead man cannot confess, and a confession is what the Lord requires. You operate it under your father's supervision. The man confesses on the second day. You don't know if he is guilty. That is not your question to ask. You are 15 years old, and you are learning that most of the questions that matter are not yours to ask. You keep your hands steady. That is enough. Level 3. The torturer. You're 18. They give you your own cases. Not executions. Not yet. Interrogations. The extraction of information that courts require before they can proceed to judgment. You are the instrument of that requirement. You are the space between accusation and verdict, where the law does its most necessary and least acknowledged work. You develop a method. Not the method your father uses. His is efficient but impersonal, built for volume, for the throughput of cases in a busy district. Yours is slower, more careful. You learn that pain applied without thought produces screaming but not necessarily truth. A man in enough agony will say anything, will confess to crimes he didn't commit, name accomplices who don't exist, produce whatever story seems most likely to make the pain stop. That is useless. What you want, what the court requires, is the truth, which means you must learn to calibrate, to find the precise point between too little and too much, where discomfort becomes cooperation without tipping into desperation. It is, you realize with something like horror, a skill, one that you are developing, one that you are becoming good at. A merchant is brought in, accused of correspondence with a foreign power. Treason, if proven. The letters have not been found. He denies everything. He is 53 years old, soft-handed, accustomed to comfort. He looks at you when they bring him in, and his face does a thing that faces do in that room, a rapid, involuntary calculation of everything about you, what you represent, what is about to happen. You explain the process to him carefully, not cruelly. Professionally, you tell him what you are going to do and why, and what he can do to make it stop. You give him the choice before you take it away. He holds out for 2 days. On the third day, he talks. Names, dates, locations, the correspondence is found where he says it is. The court is satisfied. He is transferred to your father for the next stage. You write your report. You note the methods used, the duration, the information produced. You file it with the court clerk. You wash your hands with a particular thoroughness that has become habit, not because the hands are visibly dirty, but because the act of washing has become the boundary between the room and everything outside it. A week later, the merchant's wife comes to the courthouse gate. She doesn't know your name. She asks a guard who was responsible for her husband's interrogation. The guard doesn't tell her. You watch from across the courtyard. She is perhaps 40 years old. She is dressed carefully, not in mourning. Not yet, because the execution has not happened yet, and perhaps she has not allowed herself to think past the gate. She holds herself with the particular stillness of a person who has decided that falling apart in a public place is not available to her. She speaks to the guard for a long time. The guard shakes his head. She speaks again. The guard shakes his head again. She looks past him into the courtyard. For a moment, just a moment, her eyes find you. Across the distance. You are standing still, and she is standing still. And between you is everything that has happened in that room, and everything that is going to happen next, and the complete impossibility of any of it being undone. You don't look away. You don't know why you don't look away. It would be easier. It is what you normally do, maintain the professional distance. Keep the wall intact. Let the courtyard be the boundary between the work and the world outside it. You don't look away. She looks at you for 3 seconds. Then she turns and walks back the way she came. Back into a life that has been altered in ways she doesn't fully understand yet by what happened in a room she will never see. You go back to work. That night you open the private book for the first time. You have not yet written the first entry. The merchant is still alive, still in the court's custody, his execution weeks away. But you open the book anyway, and you write one thing on the first page. Not his name, not his crime, not the date, just, she looked back. You don't know if you mean her or you. You close the book. You begin the record that you will maintain for the next 37 years. Level 4. The Journeyman. You're 22. Your first execution is a hanging, a young man. convicted of highway robbery. 3 counts. The judge has determined that the pattern establishes intent, and intent establishes the sentence, and the sentence is death, and the death is yours to administer on the 3rd Thursday of the month in the town square of a district 2 days' ride from your father's. You are on your own. You measure the rope the night before. You check it twice. You check the platform, the trapdoor mechanism, the angle of the beam. You run through the procedure in your head the way your father taught you not to calm yourself, but to find the errors before they find you. In this work there is no second attempt. There is one chance, and the crowd watching, and the man standing on the platform, and the calculation of weight and distance that determines whether this is quick or not. You sleep 4 hours. In the morning the square fills. This is what you were not prepared for, not the mechanics of it, those you know, but the crowd. The way they come with food and children. The way the execution is an event, a morning's entertainment, a story to tell at the tavern that evening. The way their anticipation sits on you like a physical thing. The young man is brought out. He is not what you expected. You expected defiance, or terror, or the kind of blank dissociation that men sometimes find in extremity. What you find is something worse. He is calm. He has made his peace somewhere between the cell and the platform, and he walks the last steps with a steadiness that costs him enormously, and that he maintains anyway. He looks at you when they position him. Not with hatred, not with accusation, just recognition. An acknowledgement that you are a person performing a function, and that this is the function, and that it will happen regardless. You place the hood. You check the knot. You step back. The trapdoor opens. The calculation is correct. It is quick. The crowd makes the sound crowds make something between satisfaction and discomfort, and then begins to disperse. You complete the required documentation. Time of death. Method. Witnesses present. You sign your name at the bottom. Your name. Your hand. Your signature on a document that records a man's death. You ride back to your father's house. He asks how it went. You say it went correctly. He nods. He goes back to his garden. That night you dream about the young man's face just before you place the hood. The steadiness of it. The cost of maintaining that steadiness in the last seconds. You wake up at 3 a.m. You lie in the dark for a long time. By morning you are ready to work. Level 5. The Headsman. You're 27. The sword is different from the rope. The rope is distance. Mechanism, calculation, the body falls, and physics completes the work, and you are several feet away when it happens. The sword is proximity, contact, the full translation of your skill and your steadiness and your 27 years of preparation into a single movement that lasts less than a second and cannot be undone. You train for 3 years before your father judges you ready. The technique is specific. The angle of the blade must be precise too shallow, and you hack rather than cut, which is the thing that fills the nightmares of every headsman who has failed publicly and been pelted with refuse by crowds who came expecting professionalism and witnessed butchery. Too steep, and the blade deflects off bone, and the result is the same. The arc must begin from exactly the right position. The follow-through must be controlled. The target must be still. The target is rarely still. A woman is brought to the block on a cold morning in November. She is 28 years old. She has been convicted of poisoning her husband, a minor lord, whose family has ensured that the conviction is as public as possible and the sentence is swift. She is composed in the way that some people are composed, when they have decided that composure is the last thing that belongs entirely to them. She kneels at the block. She places her neck. She says one thing quietly, to no one in particular, or perhaps to everyone. Please be quick. 2 words. Your entire career distilled into a request. You are quick. Afterward, the Lord's family nods their approval from the viewing platform. This is the transaction. The convicted provide the evidence of the court's authority. You provide the technical execution of its verdict, and the nobility observe from a comfortable distance and call it justice. You clean the blade with the cloth you carry for this purpose. You think about her 2 words for a long time. Please be quick. You are always quick after that, not because you are asked, because it is the one mercy available to you, and you give it every time without being asked, because she asked once for everyone who came after her, and you heard her. Level 6. The King's Executioner. You're 33. The royal appointment arrives by sealed letter. You read it twice. The wax seal of the crown. Your name in the formal script of a court clerk, an appointment, effective immediately, to the position of royal executioner of the district, with authority extending to cases of high treason, crimes against the crown, and matters of state requiring the application of capital sentence. You are now the most feared man in the district who is not the king. The cases change. No more highway robbers or poisoners or petty traitors caught in local disputes. Now the condemned arrive from the capital. Lords who backed the wrong faction in a succession dispute. Knights who spoke too freely about the king's fitness to rule. Churchmen who crossed the wrong bishop at the wrong moment. Men whose deaths are not merely punishment but message the crown demonstrating, through the precision and public nature of their endings, that no rank provides immunity. Your first royal case is a baron. He arrives with more dignity than anyone you have handled at any level. Old family, old name. He has spent 60 years accumulating the habits of a man accustomed to deference, and he deploys them now in the courtyard of the execution ground, as though they still mean something, as though you might be moved by the straightness of his spine or the steadiness of his voice. You are not unmoved. That is the part you have stopped pretending isn't true. You are not unmoved. You have never been unmoved. The wall your father described the work asks for precision. Not feelings is not a wall that eliminates feeling. It is a wall that contains it. On one side, the work, the precision, the professionalism that the condemned deserve and the court requires. On the other side, everything else. Everything you carry home. Everything that surfaces at 3 a.m. when the work is done and the distance collapses, and you are just a man in a dark room with 30 years of other people's last moments. The Baron kneels. You are quick. Afterward, the king's representative hands you a purse of silver and a written commendation. He says the crown is pleased with your service. You pocket the commendation. You ride home. You ride home to Marta. She is 31 years old. She married you knowing what you were, or believing she knew, which is different. She grew up in a village where the executioner's family lived at the edge of the settlement, and she chose you anyway, which took a courage that you have never fully acknowledged to her, because acknowledging it would require a conversation about what exactly she chose, and what it has cost her. She is paid in small ways that accumulate. The neighbor who stopped greeting her after the church pew that empties slightly when you sit in it together. The way her family visits less frequently each year without ever saying why. The way her children, your children, 2 of them, a boy of 6 and a girl of 4, are learning already that they are different from the other children in ways that haven't been explained to them yet. She asks how the day went. You say it went correctly. She looks at you the way she always looks at you after this answer. Not with frustration, she moved past frustration years ago. Not with resignation that implies something has been accepted and she has not accepted it. She has simply learned to live alongside it. With something closer to grief, the specific grief of a person who can see clearly what is on the other side of a wall and cannot get through it, and has stopped trying without stopping caring. She puts supper on the table. Your son asks what you did today. You tell him you worked for the king. He says that sounds important. You say it is. He goes back to his food satisfied with the answer. The girl watches you from across the table with the particular attention of a 4-year-old who doesn't yet have the words for what she is observing, but is observing it anyway. You eat your supper. You clear the table. You go to the room where you keep the private book, and you write the entry for the Baron. He used the habits of a lifetime to pretend the world still worked the way he understood it. You close the book. You listen to the house settle into quiet around you. Marta comes to the doorway. She doesn't come in. She looks at you at your table with your book, and she says good night. You say good night. She goes to bed. You sit with the book for a while longer. Then you go to bed too. Some nights, that is the closest you get to each other. Most nights, it is enough. Some nights, it isn't. She learned the same thing your father's silence taught you, that some rooms don't have doors that open from the outside. You can only wait for the person inside to come out. Level 7. The Inquisitor's hand. You are 38. The church comes to you. Not the local bishop. The Inquisition, the formal machinery of doctrinal enforcement that has been operating in this region for 40 years and has recently expanded its mandate and requires, for the expansion of that mandate, someone with your particular expertise. You serve God now, that is how they frame it. Not the king, not the court. God. The distinction matters to them enormously. You are not sure it matters to you in the way they intend, but you understand what they are asking, and you understand that refusal is not a real option for a man in your position. The cases are different from anything in your experience, not the mechanics. The mechanics are familiar. You have spent 26 years developing a comprehensive knowledge of what the human body can endure and what it cannot, and the geography of that boundary. What is different is the category of offense. Highway robbers stole something. Traitors betrayed someone. Poisoners killed someone. The actions were real. The consequences were real. The moral arithmetic, however brutal, operated in the world of tangible things. Heresy is different. Heresy is thought. The wrong idea held in the wrong mind and spoken in the wrong company. You are now the instrument of a machinery designed to find wrong thoughts and extract them, to locate the idea and pull it out of the person who holds it. The way a surgeon removes an infected organ. A woman is brought to you. She is 41. She has been accused of holding beliefs inconsistent with church doctrine, specifically, beliefs about the nature of the soul that a theologian has determined to be heretical. She is not violent. She has hurt no one. She is, as far as you can determine in the hours of questioning before the formal process begins, a person who has thought too carefully about things that the church prefers people not think carefully about. You perform your function. She recants on the 4th day. The inquisitors are satisfied. The recantation is genuine. You have developed, over many years, the ability to distinguish genuine recantation from strategic capitulation, and this is genuine. The beliefs have been genuinely surrendered under the genuine weight of what you have done. You file your report. You wash your hands. On your way out of the Inquisition building, you pass through a courtyard. A boy is sitting on a stone bench. He is perhaps 10 years old. He is holding a piece of bread and staring at the ground with the focused inattention of a child who is waiting for something he doesn't want to arrive. You stop. You ask him whose boy he is. He says his mother is inside. He says it the way children say necessary things directly, without understanding the full weight of what they're saying. His mother is inside. Inside meaning the Inquisition building. Inside meaning the room you just left. You look at the boy for a long time. He looks back at you. He doesn't know who you are. He doesn't recognize you the way adults do, with the slight involuntary recoil, the rapid recalculation of physical distance. He just sees a man looking at him, and looks back with the uncomplicated directness of someone who hasn't yet learned to be afraid of the right things. You sit down on the bench beside him. You don't speak for a while. Then you ask if he has eaten. He shows you the bread. You nod. You sit with him for 20 minutes while his mother is inside recanting belief she has held for 30 years under the application of your particular expertise. You don't speak again. You sit beside him on the cold stone bench in the courtyard, while the afternoon light moves across the flagstones, and somewhere in the building behind you the machinery of doctrinal enforcement continues its work. After 20 minutes, an inquisitor's assistant comes to collect the boy. His mother has been released. The recantation has been accepted. She is free to go, under conditions and with requirements, and with the permanent notation in the church's records that will follow her for the rest of her life, but free. The boy jumps off the bench and runs toward the door. He doesn't look back at you. You watch him go. You think about the surgeon analogy you used to comfort yourself at the beginning of this appointment, removing the infected organ to save the body. You look at the empty bench. You stop using the surgeon analogy. You don't replace it with anything. Some things are better left without comfortable framing. You keep working. Level 8, the Master. You are 44. Your name is known across 3 kingdoms. Not celebrated, known. The way certain things are known. Storm systems, plague routes, the executioner of the Northern District, as facts of the landscape that people account for without wanting to think about directly. You have performed 312 executions. You know the number because you keep a record. not the court's record. That exists in the official ledgers and is maintained by clerks. Your record, a private book in which you have written, for every person, the date, the method, the charge, and one sentence. Something you observed, something that distinguished this particular death from the others, something that insists on being remembered by someone. The young man on the highway, he was steady at the end in a way that cost him everything. The Baron, he used the habits of a lifetime to pretend the world still worked the way he understood it. The woman who asked, "Please be quick," she asked once for everyone. 312 entries. You have begun to train apprentices, young men sent to you by courts that have recognized your reputation and want their own executioners formed by your method. You teach them what your father taught you and what you have added in 30 years of practice. You teach them steadiness first. You teach them that the work asks for precision, not feelings, and that this is true and also incomplete. That feelings are not eliminated by the wall, only contained, and that the container requires maintenance, requires the private book, and the one sentence, and the acknowledgement that 312 people passed through your hands, and each of them was a person before they were a case. One apprentice, a young man named Thomas, 17, steady hands, quiet face, asks you one evening after a difficult day whether you believe the work is just. You look at him for a long time. You say that justice is what the court determines and your function is to execute the court's determination with precision and professionalism, and mercy is available. He says that is not what he asked. You look at him for a longer time. You say go to bed. He goes to bed. You sit with his question for the rest of the night. You don't answer it. You add his question to the private book instead, not an entry for an execution, just the question itself, written in the margin of a blank page. Is the work just? Blank page after it. You leave it blank. Level 9. The last strike, you are 55. The world has changed around you. Revolution. The word is everywhere now. In the pamphlets, in the speeches, in the crowds that have stopped dispersing after executions and started staying, turning, looking at the structures that produced the execution, and asking questions that structures have never had to answer before. The king is dead. You did not execute him. That fell to another. In Paris, the blade of a machine built specifically, so that no single person could be blamed for the act, so that death could be administered by mechanism, rather than man, distributed across the pulleys and the rope, and the weighted blade, until no one's hands were on it. You understand the logic. You have spent 43 years being the person whose hands were on it. The new regime needs executioners. Revolutions always need executioners, perhaps more than the systems they replace, because revolutions require the visible elimination of the old order, the physical demonstration that what was cannot continue. The aristocrats, the clergy, the judges, the men who ran the courts that sent people to you. Some of them you recognize. Some of them knelt at blocks you stood beside. Now they kneel at other blocks. You are asked to continue your service under the new authority. You think about Thomas's question, written in the margin of the blank page. Is the work just? Under the king, it was the king's justice. Under the church, it was God's justice. Under the revolution, it is the people's justice. The justice changes, the work does not change. The blade falls the same way regardless of whose name is on the warrant. You continue. You perform 140 executions in 14 months. The pace is unlike anything in your 40 years. There are days when the queue does not end, when the names on the warrants come faster than you can read them, when the private book, which you have maintained faithfully through 312 entries across 4 decades, begins to feel like an impossibility. There is not enough time to observe, not enough time to find the one sentence that distinguishes this person from the others. You try anyway. Some nights you write 2 words, 1 word, a physical description, anything that insists on the person having been a person. One morning a name on the warrant is familiar. Thomas, your apprentice, 38 years old now, charged with counter-revolutionary sentiment, a category broad enough to contain almost any opinion held by almost anyone at almost any time. He was 17 when he asked you whether the work was just. He spent 20 years practicing the answer you refused to give him. You stand in the courtyard. You read the warrant. You complete the documentation. You perform your function with the precision and professionalism and mercy of 43 years. You are quick. Afterward, you open the private book. You find the entry for Thomas, not his execution. You have not written that yet. You write them at night, in private. You find the question in the margin. Is the work just? Below it, for the first time in 38 years, you write an answer. It depends entirely on who is asking. You close the book. You wash your hands. You wait, because you understand, have understood since the morning you read Thomas's name on the warrant, that the question of when the revolution runs out of aristocrats and clergy and counter-revolutionaries, and begins to look at the people who administered the previous regime's justice, is not a question of if, it is a question of when. Your name is known across 3 kingdoms. That cuts both ways. You keep the private book close. You wait for your own name to appear on a warrant. Some mornings it hasn't yet. That is enough.